Hello everybody, it's Peter with an I, S-T-A-W-A-R-T. Welcome to segment 8 of, I don't know, the Dark Tower, I guess. I want to say something about the PIRSViola music project. Making music solo or with friends is so entertaining. It's fun and enriching, not only for the people making the music, it's inspiring to everyone. It's oftentimes a lot of hard work, and you don't always get paid. In fact, it's more likely performers pay for the pleasure of weaving their craft. Getting paid in peanuts is comically literal. It's all worth it though. Making a greater number of people happy with your music is so worth it. One way of getting more eyes on a no-budget video promotion is by doing a rendition of one of the PIRSViola songs. Think of it like a cover. If you were to perform PIRSViola-1-8, for example, you could make a video and say, "Hi, I'm DJ Exploding Universe. I like to make music and I perform around the Milwaukee area. I'll perform at birthday parties, weddings, and barbecues. I'll show you what my performance looks like, and if you like what you see, message me on YouTube." Of course, if you were going to do a cover of PIRSViola-5-0, you would post your rendition as PIRSViola-5-1, and if that's taken, PIRSViola-5-2. And if that's taken, PIRSViola-5-3, and so on. As it stands, there are 107 songs to choose from. And now we get back to, I don't know, the Dark Tower, I guess. Chapter 8. "What can I get for you?" asked the waitress.
"I'd like a bottle of poison and a hole in the head,"
replied Charles with a cavalier grin. She chortled and played along.
"Why so down? Because I don't have your phone number?"
"Nice," congratulated Susie Lee. Ordinarily, the waitress would have felt abused in some way. But Charles was a very attractive guy, and as she made small chat with him, she wondered how she was going to get that phone number into his pocket. Charles was attractive to the waitress for 3 reasons. The first was the most obvious: his appearance. He wasn't a bad-looking guy. Second, he only paid a very mild amount of attention to her, which told her that he didn't find her to be a goddess, and see her as the answer to his prayers. The second reason directly corresponded to the third reason. He was friends with one of the other 2 boys at the table, Chauncey. The waitress knew that if she ever dated Charles, chances were good he wouldn't fall head over heels in love with her, which would make her later decision to try to hook up with Chauncey a little less malevolent. If he appeared to be a lovesick puppy, she would be seen as an awful, deceitful wretch, and dumping him would be a nasty chore. As the waitress took the other boy's order, she tried to muster a grin when he made an attempt at being charming. She didn't like Joe. Joe looked like a needy little worm. She could tell by the way his eyes landed on her and every other girl as soon as they walked in the place. She wouldn't mind so much if he didn't have some kind of connection to the 2 good-looking boys. She knew that most boys have varying degrees of loyalty to each other, and if Joe were to say to the others, "Hey guys, look at that waitress. Dude, she's hot. I'm gonna try to hook up with her," it would be like a dog peeing on her to stake his claim, and the other boys would feel it's their duty to steer clear of her. When Joe first walked into the place and spotted the waitress, "Hey guys, look at that waitress. Dude, she's hot. I'm gonna try to hook up with her," were the exact words out of his mouth, which was the very reason why Charles was picking up on her. He didn't think the waitress was particularly cute, but he couldn't resist the opportunity to trot right over, lift his leg, and spray proverbial urine in Joe's face. Charles hated the uppity little fly that was buzzing around his friend, Chauncey. It made it worse for Charles that Joe was so overly nice and spent so much energy trying to be his friend, too. Charles had sprayed quite a lot of proverbial urine in Joe's face, But the friendly enemy just didn't seem to understand that he was out of his territory. Charles saw that Joe wasn't handsome, and he wasn't charismatic, but if he were allowed to hang out with them, he might begin to feel comfortable with his own character. Such a person who is so comfortable with themselves can become cool, which makes them more handsome beyond facial and physical features. Such a person who is handsome beyond facial and physical features, who is truly comfortable with himself, could make Adonis seem like a pretty fool. Charles knew he had to crush Joe's standing in the group and extinguish his self-respect before anything like that happened. Charles ordered the garden salad, in response to Mona and Susie Lee's mild look of surprise. Charles joked that he needed to watch his hourglass figure. He needed to watch his pennies. He lifted heavy stones for a few dollars an hour to afford things like a nice car, clothes at the mall, and all the other things to impress people in order to stay on top, which left very little money for lunch. He decided he would go over his limit a bit later on and buy something overpriced and useless and throw it away 5 minutes later, just so there would be no question in anyone's mind that he was comfortable when it came to having money, and that anyone who was near to him would also feel comfortable. He knew that any suspicion that he couldn't afford his fancy lifestyle and that he was way overdrawn on credit would be forgotten when Joe, who didn't order anything, would take over Chauncey's half-eaten lobster tail and all but lick his plate clean. Charles had to admit that having Joe around did have its advantages. It made him look real good. It wasn't only because of Joe's tact, or rather, lack thereof, which made George Costanza look like Remington Steele, that prompted Joe to wait impatiently for Chauncey to either insist on buying him something from the menu, or for him to slide over a few scraps of leftovers. It was the fact that Joe hated working and couldn't lift even one of the heavy stones that Charles would heave back and forth for hours on end. Joe was cheap, weak, and lazy, but the side order of garlic bread Chauncey let him have sure was tasty.
Ooh, yummy!
When the waitress came back to ask them if they needed anything, Joe, who had a short-term crush on her, quit chewing and pretended he wasn't eating and drinking Chauncey's free refills. When they said no, Joe felt like crying because Chauncey didn't speak up and get more bread. "What's the matter, Joe?" asked Mona. "Oh, I just have some allergies," said Joe as he discreetly rocked the rim of the empty bread dish, hoping Chauncey would get the hint. She said, nodding her head before looking back out the plate glass windows at the traffic going by. She tried to think of a way to spark a conversation with Joe. She would have liked to have had the opportunity to talk to somebody. Susie Lee was so involved with chatting with the boys. Mona felt like a third wheel. She would have much rather have spent her time at home studying. The technical material Mona studied took time to digest and couldn't be read like a newspaper or novel. But there was so much of it that she found she had to clip through it at a good pace, or else she would never make a dent in it. So for her, time was an issue. It was a frustrating how do you do to have her valuable time wasted being a spectator while others ate lunch. She felt as though she might salvage something from the experience if she were to talk to the other third wheel, Joe. When the waitress came over to check on how things were going, Susie Lee had to hold on to the handles of her seat in order to keep from flying at her face and beat her head in while howling, "Whore!" Mona and the boys were completely oblivious to the blasting decibels of competitive hatred that filled the space between Susie Lee and the waitress. If things didn't work between Chauncey and herself by the end of their lunch together, she didn't want Charles armed with a phone number in his pocket and a bunch of inspiration given to him by this other girl. Susie Lee needed every boy at that table to be desperate for romance and for her to be the sole supplier.